that's it. You know, Scott's going to do it that way, and he's not going to listen to anybody else. He doesn't want to bend. And if he has to bend, then it sucks. Must suck if he has to bend. So Scott was just hard to work with, and then once again, Brian had it in for you, and you started doing stupid shit, then fuck you. One time in the studio, they took a plate full of all of Scott's picks, and they were all, you know, signed Doozy Berkowitz. And they threw them all in the microwave, set the microwave like on 10 minutes. Exploded everywhere, picks all over the place, and it was just, you know, it was hilarious for all of us, hilarious. And then, of course, you know, Scott comes in, what happened to my stuff? Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know how it got in the microwave. I don't know why it melted all over the place. It was just shit like that. And then Brian and Scott just weren't getting along at all. And Jordy was writing half of Antichrist anyway, so fuck Scott, send him home. But then, you know, when it comes to that, it's like, okay, who's going to tell him he's fired? You know, they've got no problem fucking with him day and night, but, you know, who's going to tell him he's not in the band anymore? Which is probably, you know, the most important thing.
Manson was no stranger to rumors. Accusations of jealousy and temper tantrums plagued the band as member after member was ushered out.
The thing about Freddie was, not that he was a bad guy. Everyone in the band was cool. Everyone was nice. But if you did one thing, one little thing that got underneath Brian's skin, that bothered him for the rest of the day, for the rest of the week, for the rest of the month. That bothered him. So, and he would think about that, and it would just drive him insane. Little things. If you said something that wasn't funny in the midst of all your friends hanging out, then fuck you. I hate you. Go away. I remember on the Nails tour, Freddie used to take these like broncholators, and it would like speed, they were speed pretty much, you know. And it would get him so crazy that he would just like bounce out of his stool trying to play drums in the middle of a tour. And then finally it was just like he couldn't even keep up anymore. It was just driving Brian insane. And then if it wasn't Freddie, you know, making a fool out of himself, then it was something else. And then, of course, there was always jokes about Jessica and Freddie and, you know, that whole bathroom scene, whatever. But Freddie wasn't a bad guy.
Marilyn Manson, I guess, had this tour manager named Frankie. He used to be a bouncer. I guess he was a bouncer there, head of security or something at a club we used to play at called Plus 5 Lounge. And he looked like Vince Neil without any sleep.
Frankie was, I don't think he was ever a tour manager. And his first tour that he goes on is the band's first tour that they go on, which was just sheer chaos. I don't think Frankie knew what he was doing half the time. But, I mean, he tried really hard, and it's hard when you're friends with someone and you have to be their manager as well. And Frankie goes back to, like, the Plus 5 days, and Brian and Frankie were friends, and Frankie was, you know, working at the Plus 5, and I think Brian figured out when you take somebody that's your friend on the road, they're not your friend when they come back, and it turned out really, really, really bad.
Eventually, it was Missy that had to go. After 6 years, the relationship ended.
The last trip we went on was to Europe, and everything was good out there, but yet I knew everything wasn't as good as it was. Not that it was like perfect because he was gone all the time or whatever, but coming back from Europe and being out in Europe, it was kind of like, you know, the signs were showing up here and there, and I was just like, well, you know, I should probably start pulling away from this because I know it's not going to go much further. So then when I came back home, and my birthday's in December, first week in December. And Brian was coming down for the Rolling Stones Smashing Pumpkins concert. As you know, him and Billy are tight, so he was going to come down and sing a song with Billy at the Stones show. And he's like, look, I'm coming into town. I hadn't seen him for like 4 or 5 months. He comes down or whatever, and I knew that he was like seeing other people, but yet I was seeing other people too. But this was like, I was going into this thinking, like, okay, either, you know, something good is going to come out of this or this is going to be it. But I was kind of leaning towards the fact that this is probably, you know, closure right here with him coming down. But yet I was so excited to see him, and whenever we went to the show, and after the show, there was like a big party and a big explosion too between me and Brian, because, you know, both of us were drinking, and all these feelings just, you know, didn't know where to go, and it was just like, it didn't turn out good. But then, you know, I have this mediator, and the mediator happens to be Billy, and he's telling me, you know, you gotta just let it go. You guys love each other. Leave it at that. You know, go your separate ways. But, you know, you always have what you had, and that's what you always have, pretty much. And that was probably the best advice. And I knew, too, that, you know, this was probably it. But, I mean, we're still friends. I still talk to him. You know, we keep in touch. I always will keep in touch with him. You know, I don't regret anything in the relationship at all, and I'm not bitter towards him because of it, so why not, you know?
So you think he's gonna hate you for doing this?
Probably.
You don't think he will, do you?
I don't think so. I mean, it's not like I'm lying about anything. He'll just be, he probably won't give a shit at all, you know? He might, who knows, probably laugh about it, say what a dumbass I am, but I don't know. We'll see.
Manson wrote in his famed autobiography that there was no one else in the world who understood and accepted him as unconditionally as Missy did. There was no other girl he would feel that close to.